Back, the International Monetary Fund sees growth on the continent slowing the most in 6 years. Lower commodity prices and the continent's dependence on them being the key drivers there. Well, these and other findings were contained in the IMF's sub-Saharan Regional Economic Outlook report that was published today. The international lender says African countries need to diversify their economies such that they're not wholly dependent on their natural resources. Well, our reporter Nompumelelo Siziba caught up with the IMF's Director for Africa, Antoinette Sayeh. She started by asking her what the main findings of the report were.
The commodity price shock and this tighter financial market, of course, means that it's a more difficult time for a number of countries, in particular for the oil exporting countries. We have 8 oil exporters in sub-Saharan Africa that account for some 50% of the region's GDP. They've been very hard hit, but also hit exporters of other commodities. Countries have benefited, of course, from lower oil prices. Countries that import are net importers of oil. Quite a few countries are, but they also are exporters of other commodities, and so those prices have come down as well. So those countries not doing as well. But on the other hand, we have a large group of low-income countries that are still growing quite well. A number of those countries in East Africa, but also in DRC and also Côte d'Ivoire, for example, countries that are doing better, growing still very robustly. But then middle-income countries, among them South Africa and Ghana and a few other countries that also been hit by commodity price shocks as well, but also with some domestic vulnerabilities of their own.
Antoinette, in terms of diversifying away from commodities, what are you advising African countries?
Well, first they have to navigate this very difficult period, and because of the decline in their buffers, their fiscal buffers over the years, they need to very quickly find new sources of revenues to make up for the decline in natural resource revenues they're seeing. They have to choose their spending in a much more rigorous way to make sure they're getting the highest quality spending and the greatest returns to their economies. The public financial management systems, they should invest in improving those. For those countries that have flexible exchange rates, we think it makes sense for them to allow those currencies to depreciate to help with the adjustment process that needs to take place. And countries have to accelerate and pursue structural reforms that will help them improve the enabling environment for investments into other sectors. And infrastructure investments are a big constraint on companies, investors moving to other sectors, and those need to be advanced as well.
Here in South Africa, international organizations like yourself and our very own Treasury have said that economic growth is going to come in a lot lower than was previously anticipated. There's a lot of concern in South Africa about the growth trajectory. What is it that you feel that South Africa needs to be doing to get out of the current mire that it's in?
South Africa's problems are largely structural. In addition to electricity, of course, there's the whole issue of the enabling environment, product market competition, things that need to be done there. We've been encouraged, for example, by some actions taken in the way of encouraging small and medium enterprises, but there are a number of things still to be done there. These visa requirements, for example, I understand that's also being looked at. Areas that need to be looked at there. Small and medium enterprises being, really faced with a huge cost from having to implement agreed agreements in the more formal sector between labor and companies, and being imposed on them, even if they were not involved in negotiating those settlements. That's an expensive constraint that small and medium enterprises deal with. So that can be changed as well. So there are a number of structural issues that really need to be addressed to really allow South Africa to get through this very difficult patch.
All right, Nompumelelo Siziba there talking to the IMF representative, Antoinette Sayeh in Southern Africa.